Emily, with AI really changing how we buy, how we do business, how we research, how does personal reputation ensure that we don't get lost in the noise?
Yeah, I think it is a shift in what's happening right now, and realizing that brands don't protect you, but your reputation does. Um, Especially in staffing, where right now there's a lot of M&A, there's a lot of consolidation, there's a lot of roles changing, and so the ones that stay relevant are the ones that are trusted in that messy middle. And so your reputation really is built around the rooms that you are in, the problems that you solve, and how people experience yourself under pressure. And then the brand just really kind of amplifies it. It doesn't replace it. And so, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, and you and I have talked about it, nobody hires a logo these days. They hire a person they believe can fix their problem.
It's interesting because I think with staffing firms doing marketing, deploying marketing, the logo sort of funnels potential buyers in. But I think you're right. I think buyers do business with other humans. They don't necessarily trust the logo per se.
1000%, because and that's one of the biggest things that with any client that I have, if you're not walking the talk, you're not going to be my client. I can help you get there, but in order to market your business, you got to be walking the talk and doing what you're saying or what you're wanting to publish actually to be authentic in this market. Because back to what you said, the AI, how do you tell, how can you tell if someone actually wrote that themselves or if AI wrote that these days, or even from a company perspective? So how are companies putting their people at the heart of what they're showing that they're doing?
How do you propose we do that? So speak to the leader listening right now who is maybe struggling with giving their employees the floor to have a strong or strategic personal brand. Where do you get started?
Yeah, I think it comes back down to it. Normally, it's not a strategy problem. Normally, it is a translation problem, not a strategy problem. It's, are you translating your objective in a way that someone can actually understand it in the seat that they're sitting in? And most of the time, it requires multiple different communication efforts. Like, you're going to communicate to this person completely different than the way that you communicate to this person. And so, from a leadership perspective, you want to just get the job done. You want to go, go, go. You want that money flowing in. Sometimes you just got to stop and pause and say, why are we doing this? And what is being interpreted on the flip side? And sometimes that comes back down to just a simple pulse check of the company.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that. I just had a conversation with our producer over here about why are we creating content in the first place. We were getting ready for this show and we were just kind of going back and forth and just kind of talking shop a little bit about why we do the things we do, why we put together a podcast, why we clip it into 20 shareables, why we put it into blog articles, why we put it into a newsletter. Why are we doing all of this in the first place? And I think if you are, as a leader, just telling your team, well, hey, in a very minute detail, you need to be posting on LinkedIn 3 days a week, right? Like, just as a tip, right? You should be doing this. If your team isn't bought into why they should be doing that in the first place, they're not going to do it. And if they are, it's not going to be of value to anybody. It's going to waste their time, the reader's time. They're going to get frustrated. They're going to give up on it. I think that buy-in is critical.
It is that buy-in and that why behind why you're doing something. I mean, I can even take it down to, talking to my 5-year-old or to my 8-year-old. Why am I telling you that you don't need to act that way? Or why
Mm-hmm.
am I telling you that, yes, you have to eat breakfast? Um, it, so when you think of just, and it sounds so silly because it's just a simple essence of, I feel like, human acknowledgement of, um, why are people doing what they're doing? Um, a lot of it comes back down to, are you talking to your audience like a fifth grader or a 5-year-old? Like, are you breaking it down? Because in today's world, acronyms. Oh my goodness. Um, I was on a call the other day and someone had started using acronyms. I'm like, okay, hold on. PSO. That's not pumpkin spice latte. That is paid sick leave, right?
Yeah.
Like just, and because not everybody lives where your brain lives every day. And so that's why whenever you start thinking about branding and your personal brand and how you interpret what someone else thinks about it, it really comes back down to, am I simplifying it enough?
I think that's a challenge that we get into frequently. We almost want to sound more sophisticated than our readers so that people look up to us, right? I want to use big buzzwords and I want to sound more educated than you because, well, if you can talk at this level, then I have to do business with you because I don't know what you're saying. But I think that's actually counterintuitive. We need to break it down into their language. Otherwise, they get tuned out. But I do think that's a common misconception that we need to talk above our audience when in actuality, we need to talk and meet them exactly how they want to be communicated with.
Yeah, 1000%. And I mean, a leadership 101. Do you want, do you always want to be the smartest person in the room?
Mm,
No. As a leader, you should not.
yeah.
You surround yourself with people that know the different, because you're never going to be the smartest person in the room unless you think you are. And then how far does that get you?
I don't listen to them much anymore, but I used to be a huge Dave Matthews Band fan, like
Yeah.
massive fan. And I remember a story when he formed the band. He built the band around musicians that were better than him, and they named themselves the Dave Matthews Band because they needed a name for a ticket and their first show, and they didn't know what to call themselves. But I remember him saying very specifically, I am the worst member of this band and I want it that way. Like the band should be able to carry us and help elevate me. And just because it has my name on it doesn't mean that I'm the best member of the band. I'm far from it. I think that's that whole mentality of surrounding yourself with better talent is exceptional.
Yeah. And you think, and to even kind of take it to another level, I mean, one thing that I teach my girls, and because my parents taught me this, you know, just because you're a janitor or just because you're picking up trash on the side of the road, that does not mean that you are any less better than you sitting right here talking on podcast. Like that doesn't diminish that. And one of the things, like even with my 8-year-old, and I think she's taken it to heart because she has now become like best friends with the lady that cleans the school. And when you think about that and you think of how she sees it, I mean, she sees it in a way that, why are people mean to her, mom? Why are people mean to her? I'm like, you're not, are you? You're being kind. Be a good human. Be kind. Because we're all living in different ways. And I think that when you talk about um talking to someone real and being able to communicate on a level, especially from the leadership level down to mid management or even the entry level side, you don't know what's happening in their life. And they they might not even be totally bought in to what is the saying, like, have they drank the Kool-Aid of of your company culture? They probably haven't, and they have a life outside and you don't know what's going on in that life. And so how then do you take a step back as a leader to make sure that that communication on whatever level resonates? We are living in such a fast pace, and I mean, you said it before, this is a content heavy. Why are we even doing this? We are in content overload. Um, and so whatever content you're producing, what is the why behind that? And how does that make you you?
Let's touch on that. So we are in content overload. We are in information overload. It has never been easier to get the answer to any question that you want. I mean, I use ChatGPT religiously for questions that I have now in terms of break this down as simple as possible so that I can be successful in what I'm trying to do. I wanted to grill the other night and I don't want to dry out the food I was cooking. And I've cooked burgers 1,000 times, but I said, you know what? Let's just try ChatGPT for a couple tips and tricks, right? It worked. We are in content overload. We are in an era of information overload. Knowing that, talk to me, sort of the junior recruiter who sees that, who understands that, who says, listen, I'm just going to be another fish in this pond, and it's hard to make noise in a big pond. Why should I get started?
Relationships matter. And I mean, when you talk about ChatGPT, I mean, mine has a name, and I actually named it after my late grandma, because my Wanda was my spirit animal, and she constantly was my guide. And so when my ChatGPT, because ChatGPT, it's programmed to always like think that you're on the right track. Have you ever tried to push back? Have you ever tried to? I'm like, no, Wanda, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, come on. Uh, but when you are a junior recruiter and you're just getting started and you're in the people business, and people have feelings, people have emotional intelligence, people have empathy. And so if you're not connecting with, your candidates or your talent, that's not going to establish the trust. And I mean, I know plenty of recruiters, and the ones that are the best are the ones that truly care and start a conversation with, how's your family? How's it
Yeah.
going? Versus, all right, what's your next role? Because that then creates that connection. When I studied at Georgetown, actually, one of the hardest classes that I ever took, it was, I forgot what the class was called, but um, we had to read Democracy in America by Florence de Tocqueville. And that really stuck with me, and that's really kind of shaped my thinking in different ways, because he wrote this book, and don't 1700s, I think it's late 1700s. He basically predicted that we were going to have cubicles. And so if you put cubicles up, that blocks human interaction, that blocks human conversation, that puts a wall between you. And so as even COVID played out, my head just kept going back to, all right, how are how are relationships and the humanity of the conversations and, important decisions, and back to just the concept of, what is your reputation and why do people trust you? It's because you've probably bonded on some level, and you didn't just enter the room and it wasn't just all business. It wasn't just all right, what's on the agenda? Let's go. And that is where I feel a lot of leaders, because you got the board, you have your stakeholders, you have your investors to answer to. So you are under a lot of pressure in that CEO or C-level role to be able to put out what you're saying that's happening, but you cannot forget the people. If you forget the people, those people aren't going to want to work for you. And so it's really like a balance of, how do you ensure that you maintain the people, the and that kind of goes into like a culture kind of aspect of it.
Yeah.
Um, do people trust you? Is your door open? Are you standing there like this? Are you approachable? It comes down to all of those, what you would think are simple communication knowledge, but it's not.
From a personal branding standpoint, what does that mix look like in terms of sharing educational content and information for your target audience paired with the personal side of it? And I'm thinking, about the individual listening who hears us talking now and says, okay, well, if I'm in a room, sure, I could talk about how, I'm in a marathon training block right now, and I'm running 30 miles a week. And if you relate to that, we can have a conversation about that. We can talk about training. We can share those sort of war stories. But I'm not posting about that every day on LinkedIn. I'm not posting about that every day in my newsletter. So what does that shift look like from online, or I guess from offline to online?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great question, because I've done so many trainings with different, whether different audiences, right? And even even training high school students, reminding them what they put online will stay with them. It creates the digital footprint. And what's so crazy about that is that you would have thought that they would have been taught that, but nobody clearly said that way. Like, no, what you just posted on Snapper Chatter or on, like, yes, it disappears, but where does it disappear to? Like, where did so don't be dumb about what you're putting out there. And that's where you know, when you think about what you're posting online, I take it back to the why. Why are you posting online? You're normally posting online to get some type of engagement, whether that is starting a conversation or getting the likes or getting that. But you personally going back to, okay, why am I even saying this? Or am I just and I mean, this is a very big marketing term type thing, but it's quality over quantity wins every day. Quality wins over quantity. Are you posting every day? Like, I mean, okay, look at your stats. You're posting, you're going through the rhythm. I've seen it with, you know, some marketing agencies. They'll just come in and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this, and we're going to post 5 times a day. That's on our contract. We're going to deliver that. But in reality, is that actually getting any engagement? Is that actually resonating with the audience? Most of the time, not. And so, how then do you step back and change the look? And so, from the personal branding point, and it's funny because I mean, I'm a huge advocate of like social advocacy and making it easy for um, your team members to share your brand's content. Huge
Sure.
component of that.
Sure.
But you cannot just do that. Back to your initial question of, you know, with where companies are right now, there's consolidations, acquisitions, people are being let go. And the biggest topic that I have had with very close coworkers, former coworkers, has been, all right, I shared all this stuff, but it wasn't me. It wasn't my brand. And so then it's like honestly a coaching discovery process of, all right, well, what do you want to be known as? And it's funny because there's some I've seen it in two different ways. There's some that just share what is there. There's some that share with their comments. And the ones that share with their comments don't realize that they're establishing their personal brand right there.
Yeah.
Because what people are actually looking at is, oh, they didn't share this company post, which you need both. You need both, especially in the digital algorithm world. But are you posting just to post, or are you posting because that actually resonated with you and you want to share it to your network?
Yeah. I was on Twitter earlier this week and I saw an article called The Psychology Behind Viral LinkedIn Content. And I'm always super skeptical about articles like that because in marketing, the second someone thinks they have a hack to an algorithm or whatever it might be, that's the second everything gets blown up because, you know, if you say, okay, the perfect time to post is 3 o'clock and everyone starts posting at 3, now it becomes the worst time. So it's one of those things where, you know, you need to be mindful of it. You need to read it as a marketer, but take it for what it is. But again, it's called The Psychology Behind Viral LinkedIn Content. And I shared it with the team over here. And the biggest takeaway for me is exactly what you're speaking on. It's that people, when consuming content, don't necessarily care about the information. They care about what you have to say about the information.
And how it
And
impacts them.
100%. So there's psychology things in that article that are important that I think matter too. But at its very, very foundation, it's just sharing a resource on labor trends in Buffalo, New York isn't enough. It's what does Brad Biley care about the labor market in Buffalo, New York? And most importantly, what does it matter for me, the reader, on the other side of that in my day to day? So it's having sort of a take on the information. And I think that's right. And I don't know that I needed to read the article to know that. You know, if you look at any beat reporter for a local sports team, I don't care what the final score of the Bills game is. I can ask Alexa that score. right? I can get the score by
You
saying,
just made
hey,
my
what was
Alexa
this?
say hi.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Usually I say Sysmexa or something like that just because I don't know what's in your office, right? But I can get that information super easily. I care about what the local beat reporter from WGR has to say about the game, how the defense broke down, what happened, how the offense performed, what happened with Josh Allen. I want to know that side of it, and I want to know that one person's take on the score and on the outcome of that game. And I think when we talk about building a personal reputation, we talk about building a personal brand, that's the unlock that we're looking for. It's not just having the information that our clients and our potential buyers of our services don't have, but it's having the courage to have some sort of thought on the information and spinning it in a way to them that almost slaps them in the face that they have to read the information that you're sharing because you are the trusted voice that no one else is.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, so what's weird about, like, I mean, you talk about marketing, and I don't have a marketing degree, and that's been one of, I don't have a marketing degree, but hey, guess what? I started a marketing department for a very large public company, and it was successful. But from that, why I was able to do that was because I have that psychology degree and my political science degree. And I say this because I've also been in conversation, like, back to high school students. I mean, they're the next gen, like they're our next workforce. So how are you relating to them? Because I stood there in front of them talking about resumes and job interviews, and they're like, "Wait, hold on, you don't even have a marketing degree. So why do I need to go to college?" And it's not about why do I need to go to college? It's how do I now use that psychology degree that I
Mm-hmm.
have for marketing? If you're not getting into the brain of the consumer, what are you doing from the marketing perspective? And so I've had to, when I first was asked that question, it took me back. I'm like, oh, I mean, that's a legit question. But that experience, it goes back to that experience. What are you experiencing, and what are you taking from that? We get so caught up every day with the news or this type of, okay, this was that viral thing on LinkedIn. Um, and you get stuck there. When do you have silence to then be able to really think of what your personal brand is? Um, and I mean, I've had to do a lot of digging myself, because in the past, with
Yeah.
the companies that I've worked for, I've thrown myself into that, and that became my brand. Yet I still maintained my own point of view, but in a careful manner. And now where I am right now, it's, I can say what I want and not be scared to. I think, when you were talking about, the junior recruiter or someone posting something online, goes back to the humanity of it, and everybody is anxious. Everybody is scared to say something because in this day and age, how would that come back and bite them potentially? How are you, Brad, going to judge me on what I just posted? Do I care? No, right, right. I do care, but
Most
it
do. I mean,
also,
most do.
I have to stay out of my head. I have to get it out of my head in order to truly speak that way.
Hey, a quick pause before we get back to the show, because this is something every staffing leader needs to hear. Most staffing firms are spending a lot on benefits and still only covering about half of their workforce. That's exactly why I like what my friends at Benefits in a Card are doing. Instead of forcing owners into expensive, bundled health plans, they offer unbundled benefits designed for high turnover workforces. Things like free prescriptions through their free RX program, dental, vision, virtual urgent care, and supplemental coverage with no deductibles. The result? You can offer benefits to 100% of your workforce, control costs, and actually improve retention. If benefits have felt like a losing game, check out my friends at benefitsinacard.com and schedule a quick unbundled benefits review. Again, that's benefitsinacard.com. All right, let's get back to the show. Have you seen the new ad for the Disney Cruise Line?
I don't know. What is it?
where father takes his kid on a walk pretty much every year on the Disney cruise?
I have not.
Okay. So the reason I was going to bring that up is you're touching on something about how great marketing makes you feel something, and the right story makes you feel something. And you had mentioned having two kids, and I would have assumed they would have targeted you in their crosshairs with this one. I will tell you, I am not a crier. I have a very tough exoskeleton, and I bawled. It got me right in the feels. And this ad, it's basically the progression of a father taking his baby on a walk on the Disney cruise, going all the way to then that individual taking who is now his grown son and his baby for that walk on that cruise over time. And I mean, the turning point is huge. Without seeing it though, and I think we can sell the conversation. I think the best marketing tells a story. I think the best personal reputation, personal brand tells a story. Walk us through sort of the storytelling element of marketing. How important is storytelling in messaging?
Good question. And right when you started saying that, have you ever read The Power of Ted? It's the empowerment dynamic.
No. From TED Talks or no?
Nope. It's
Okay.
called The Power of Ted, and TED
Okay.
stands for the empowerment dynamic. And so
Understood.
there's two different sides. There's the dreaded drama triangle, where you have, the victim and the rescuer and the persecutor. And then on the empowerment dynamic, you have the characters of the creator, the challenger, and the coach. And I say this because Power of Ted changed like my mindset. I was in a bad place and I was spiraling, and it was one of those, okay, am I going to be the victim, or am I going to be the creator? Guess what? I'm going to choose creator all day. But you have to be self-aware to make that call. And I started reading this past week on spring break. I always take a book, and I listen to it. I don't take the book. I take it in my
Yeah.
earphones.
Yeah.
And I walk the beach. That's my self time. And I didn't realize that the book that I had was a sequel kind of to The Power of Ted, and it's Who Do You Want to Be? Like, that's what it's called. Who do you want to be? And in this book, they start talking about, they're talking to a CEO, and she thinks that she needs coaching for her team. She doesn't think that she needs coaching herself. As it continues to play out, the coach helps her realize, like, oh, I see this. But one of the things that was an aha for this CEO was the marketing aspect of her just watching the commercials and saying, okay, that was someone trying to rescue someone and bring them over here. And so the power of a story, yes, it's there. You have to, I mean, what were we taught in middle school? Like, you have this paragraph's this paragraph's like, you have to have that story. You have to have that concept. But the way that marketing and advertising, just in general, yeah, it's going to tug on your heartstrings. And the heartstrings, how many, like, there's so many, the Super Bowl commercial that you remember is normally the one that you have like a tear running down your face because you
Mm.
can somehow connect to it. Now, everybody doesn't have a tear running down their face. Some people do. Some people might get all hoot and holler for this other commercial, and that might be the one that they remember. But this goes back to, you can't speak to the audience as a blanket. It's, who are you trying to talk to? And so for that Disney advertisement, that was talking to dads because they were walking. I mean, you
Don't do this, Emily. You're
but
right. You're exactly right.
that's what they
Yeah.
were targeting you. So probably I haven't seen it because they haven't come out with the mom version.
You're probably exactly right though, right? Dads probably don't want to go on that trip. They're thinking the cost of going on that trip. Yes, the memories come with it, but you only get the memories once you're on the boat. And you're so right. You're too right. but what was your favorite Super Bowl ad? You mentioned the Super Bowl. I'm curious. Did you watch this year?
I
And
did,
if
and
not,
I
that's
actually
okay.
do. So My favorite commercial, back to how it relates to you, and it was the Olympic commercial, and it was this little girl. She is standing there, and she is wanting to perform. She doesn't have anybody to perform in front of, so then she goes and gets all her stuffies and builds like an audience arena, and then she does her performance, and it's going back and forth to and from, like, ice skating to her doing this performance. Like, it's going back and forth. Well, the kicker for me was that little girl looks identical to my 5-year-old that is curly head, redhead. And they don't normally put redheads in commercials, for one. But I happened to see it, and Isabella was sitting next to me, and she goes, "Mom, I'm on TV." And
Yeah.
now every time I see it, it is. It's like, oh my gosh. But it's mind blowing. But that goes back to that connected with me because of that.
So mine was the Google Photos commercial where the family was moving to a new home. And because Google Photos is built with Gemini into it now, the mom was showing pictures of the new house and asking Gemini to put their old toys into the new house. So put our bed in the new room, put our stuffies in the new
Brilliant.
room, put the new backyard, like our old backyard in, and the swing set in the new yard to make the kid feel more comfortable. Again, kind of tougher on the outside. I try to be, at least my wife and I, bald. Again, they know exactly who they're speaking to at that point. And I'm sure my friends who don't have kids are completely different. There's different ads that are speaking to them. But it comes back to the right marketing and the right messaging has to make you feel something. And when we talk about having a personal reputation, when we talk about having a personal brand, at the end of the day, we want people to know, like, and trust us, right? If we're in a sales role, we want people to know, like, and trust us so that when things hit the fan, they know who to call because they feel like they know us better than anybody else and they know we can be the hero that they're looking for. In the same respect, if we're a recruiter, there are thousands of recruiters in the United States. At the foundation, they all do the same thing. They put great people to work in great opportunities. I'll be the first to say it. I've said it on stage. At its core, that's what we do. But there's a reason that someone wants to work with Emily, the recruiter, and a reason why someone wants to work with Brad, the recruiter. And that comes down to relationships. It comes down to being human, and it comes down to being uniquely you. And I think we get there by having the right messaging and the right reputation that makes people feel something.
1000%. And to take it kind of a step further, like, how does that play in the international world? Because do you think that you can talk the way you talk to me to someone, say, in India or Colombia?
I don't know. What do you mean by that?
So with it goes back to the relationship side, but it goes
Yeah.
back to
Hmm.
also, are you aware of the different cultural nuances per se? I heard a speaker 2 years ago, and she wrote a book called Culture Mapping. Awesome book.
Okay. Yeah.
And but what it goes into is, and what she was focusing on is, there's a CEO that, okay, we just acquired an international company, right? And I'm just gonna go in, I'm gonna tell them about our stock stuff. Okay, the people over here in this nation, they don't care about that. What they care about is their family and how this is going to impact them. And so with that, it's, how are you adjusting your message? So a prime example is talking to someone in Colombia. You don't start that meeting with, "Here's the agenda." You start that meeting with, "How are you?" And if you start that meeting with, "Here's the agenda," there's the intimidation factor. They shut down, and they become, it's just a shift because it's a mind shift for them. They feel almost intimidated in that sense, and that you don't truly care about them. Same thing with India. The India, so we in my past role, we acquired a company that was in India, And we had my CEO, she does the welcome message and all of that stuff. And we get off of that call, and we also adjusted the messaging to focus on the culture of the company and what we do for people and what we were doing in the communities, because America's weird. America is very I mean, you look at how much we work compared to even France. Like, let's not even go into the PTO side, but um, with this though, she was presenting, and she's used to people responding and interacting and commenting, right? There was nothing, and it was one of those moments where we got off of that call, and she was like, I don't know, Emily, if that went well. And I was like, no, I think it went well. You did great. You spoke to the audience. The thing that you are not taking into consideration is when you're in India, if you are a female and you are not spoken directly to, you are not to respond. And so that is why there was no response like what you're used to and
Yeah.
what you're used to seeing, because in that culture, they interact differently. They have different standards. And I mean, you could go on and on about all different cultures, but that was so eye-opening for me from an experience side, like truly seeing it play out in real life. I'm like, oh, yeah. hmm
Yeah.
and this is why. So then what then kind of my brain went to was, okay, how can I educate the leaders in this organization that are now working with these individuals on these cultural nuances? Like, do they even know? And so I ended up back to finding an article. There was a simple article that
Mhm.
that put it high level, back to just high level. Like, you're not going to culture class. You're you're going to, okay, let's just know how to interact with others and how
Yeah.
how to approach a situation. I mean, and that's on, the global kind of scale of things.
Think it's incredibly important when you're talking to somebody to be mindful of sort of the energy that they're giving back to you, and then either reciprocate that or change what you're doing to be on the same level as them. Um, I don't know how that correlates with what I'm posting from a personal brand standpoint, though, and I think I should, right? So I think it's important that we're incredibly mindful of how people are receiving a message, because anything that you post or anything you do could be taken in 100 different ways. So we absolutely need to be mindful of that, and we need to be aware of that, which comes back to, well, what is our why, right? Why are we doing this in the first place? And if we know our North Star and we know our why, then it should all sort of fall into place. And I think that's sort of the unlock there is, if we know our why, we know the North Star, everything else should follow suit.
It should, but I think you have to remember that it is um, a continuous growth. So just because you found that
Yeah,
North Star, so to put it in marketing words,
agreed.
just because you built that website doesn't
Hmm.
mean you're done with that website.
Agreed.
Because guess what? Your audience evolves. You're going to need to keep doing it. And so corporations have gotten into the pattern per se of, all right, we have a project. Here's the beginning, here's the end. What comes after that end? How do you keep cultivating that? How do you keep maintaining that from going flat? And guess what? In 5 years, you're going to have to have a complete rebrand because you're not staying up with your current brand. That's the same thing personally. And so, how I think you could, it goes back to what tools do you have in your tool belt per se, but it's also another great resource for just individual branding and just understanding yourself. Have you ever done strength finders?
Um, no, I'm familiar with it, but I have never done the specific test on myself.
So there's lots out there. Obviously, there's
Yeah.
strength finders, there's the predictive index, there's so on and so on and so on. If you do one of those and you actually then analyze it with your team, just in the team dynamic, you're going to talk to this person completely different. And you're going to understand this person more of, oh, that's why they act that way. Oh, that's why they just responded and they just shut down because of it. And it's back to the psychology of it and being aware, the emotional intelligence of being aware of your audience and how people are responding and how people are interpreting that.
I'm being reminded of a data point that I read a little while ago in, oh goodness, the name of the book is escaping me and I apologize. But the lesson that I took away from it is that introverts need 24 to 48 hours to reflect on a question before they're comfortable to answer. So if you're in a meeting room and I say, Emily, what do you think about ABC? And you are at your core a very introverted person, you're going to shut down. But if I were 2 days before, say, listen, I want everybody on the team to think about these 3 questions, and I gave you the space to think about that, you're going to come to the conversation now, maybe still a little timid just because of your personality type. But if I were to call on you in that situation, at least I've given you the 48 hours that you mentally need to get ready with your thoughts. And I think you're exactly right there. It's making sure that you're aware of how individuals on your team act, behave, how they want to be communicated with, in having the courage to sort of change how you are articulating things and how you're interacting with individuals to get the most and best out of everybody.
1,000.
No hard feelings. No hard feelings is the name of the book.
Oh, okay. I need to write
I wasn't saying no hard feelings to you. No hard feelings is the name of the book. It just came to me.
No hard feelings. But no, okay. I'm writing that book down. I mean, you're spot on about that, and I even think of it back to even from the personal side. I mean, I married a wonderful man, but if you look at any of these psychology tests, we are polar opposites, like polar opposites. And it's funny because now that I'm aware of that and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have gotten mad at that. Like I should have come at it at a different angle. And that's where it comes back down to knowing your audience and truly, and this is where brands and branding gets it wrong. They're not understanding who their actual audience is. They think they know, and they might bucket into, okay, this is my audience. Okay, but you actually have 5 different audiences, not one. And so how are you going to layer in the messaging? Because guess what? If you're going to need to post on LinkedIn 5 times a week for the algorithms, and please don't do that because that's quantity over quality. But how are you strategically layering, like, to hit the different audiences? Because not everybody's going to be paying attention at all times. But if you're layering it in, like, for instance, I'm going to talk to this audience today. I'm going to talk to this audience on Wednesday. I'm going to talk to this audience on Friday. And then we're going to cycle through it. That's where you start to see people actually connecting and recognizing that type of brand. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think most staffing firms get that wrong. I think we talk about what we do, our services. We talk about why you should work with us, why we're better, faster, stronger. We're not actually separating our target audience into buckets and speaking to specific pain points in each of those buckets. If we're trying to get new business, we're not looking at the messaging for former customers or new customers or current customers to get more business from them. We're just deploying, again, better, faster, stronger messaging, trying to sell ourselves instead of thinking about, okay, well, who am I talking to? Because at the end of the day, there's only one other person on the other end of this phone. We're doing that at scale with social media, with the things that we do, but only one person is reading that message. What's in it for them? What's the why? And I think a lot of the best staffing and recruiting firms segment their audiences. They know the messaging for each of them. But I think an overwhelming majority of them get that wrong, in the sense of we just sort of post and hope for the best, or we just share content and hope for the best.
And I think there's a side of it that it's, oh, hey, look at me, versus, and that's from a company perspective of here's our company, here's what we're doing internally. And it's not showing the impact that you're having on the people that you're putting to work. That is what the
100%.
staffing specifically, that's where it makes it so interesting because, I mean, your product is people. And that can be looked at in negative ways, in positive ways. Like but your product is people. And if your product is people and all you're posting out there is, oh, hey, look at us. Hey, look at what we're doing versus this person got a job and here's this story and here's how it transformed their life. That's game
Yep.
changing
That's the
because
story we need to tell.
it goes from, oh, this is just a marketing campaign of we're bigger, better, faster, stronger. We got this AI, we got this. But you've invested all of that. But how are you telling the story of what that's doing to actually impact lives?
100% agree. And that's the difference in Disney saying you should spend X thousand of dollars to come on our cruise, or hey, Brad, who is now watching this video, who has 2 young kids, look at the memories that are going to happen and let's do it in a way that is absolutely going to tear you apart. So that now, having never wanted to go on a Disney cruise line, I'm now like, well, hey, if we can have half of these memories, why wouldn't I cut the check for that? Emily, before I let you go and before I get you to our rapid fire round, I want to give you the floor to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah. So, I'm Emily Burroughs. Hi. Hello. But I started my own company, I'm 6 months in, and it is called EB Connection. And EB, obviously Emily Burroughs, but it also stands for Experience Bold. And because I think you have heard over the past 45 minutes of how I truly think that experience and communication come to the core of how someone will interpret it. And so, what my team and I are doing are we're helping organizations really bring clarity into something that they might not know how to resonate or how they need to say it in a way that hits whether that's their internal audience or whether that is their external audience or whether that's their stakeholders. But and then it's funny because I've come up with it hit me like a few weeks ago with one of my clients. I'm like, oh, so I truly am like a translator because we're not improving you. Y'all already have it down. You know who you are. It's understanding who you want that to be translated to and how we translate that so it resonates with others. And so it's been a fun journey. I have a variety of clients. I have corporations, I have individuals, I have international speakers. It's been fun because I've actually been able to help people see the value of what they bring to the table and amplify that. Um, in my past, I was known as like the bedazzler of just making things shine. And
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to it, it is. I love to see others shine in the way that they want to be seen and what brings them success. That's part of my core. It's making a difference. And so I'm able to do that every day. That's what I do now.
If you're a staffing owner planning to scale in 2026, listen closely. For more than 35 years, Tricom has partnered with staffing owners to support growth without adding unnecessary risk or back office burden. Tricom is not a factoring company. They're an asset-based lender and full-service back office partner, building solutions tailored to your staffing business and cash flow needs. If growth is starting to create pressure around payroll, cash flow, or administration, Tricom provides the flexibility and operational support to help you expand with confidence. I trust their team and have known them for over a decade. To learn more, visit tricom.com and request a conversation to see how they support your staffing business. All right, let's get back to the show.
Very good. And our rapid fire round, we talked about a few books here. So this question might be redundant at this point. And I appreciate you bringing books to the show. I tell every listener, mostly every episode, as much as this is for you, it's really just to build my own library. So I'm going to ask you the same question. One book that's fundamentally changed your life.
Power of 10.
Very good. And we talked about that already. Usually I say why and try to get some context in there. But I appreciate you.
I will add to that. Like,
please.
I was in a bad, there was a new C-level entered in and I spiraled because it was like everything was taken away from me. And I could have responded two different ways. I could have thrown my talent and quit, or I could have been like, all right, well, what am I going to create? And actually, one of my dear friends, she's the one that recommended it. She's the CEO of Girl Scouts, and she was like, Emily, you just need to go read this book. And that's all she said. Like, after we had coffee, she's like, you just need to go read this book. And when I read that book, it's like, all right, am I going to be the victim and I'm going to let them win? Clearly, I'm a competitive person. No, I'm going to create something. I'm going to be the creator, and I'm going to create something out of this instance. And that book, it's like you're walking with someone on the beach, like literally in this story. And it's just powerful because somehow it relates to you in all different levels, not just the professional side, because I even now use it with how I how I speak to my girls. I have to really think about, all right, are they going to feel like the victim, or they're going to be throwing a fit over here? And I'm like, yo, you're not the victim. Go create something out of this. Like, but and that just goes back to how do you set your mentality? Because you, at the end of the day, have the power of how your day goes.
We'll add it to the Amazon cart. It'll be here tomorrow. And one piece of advice that you would give to somebody just starting in staffing and recruiting, what would you tell them?
Ask lots of questions. Ask lots of questions to your colleagues. Ask what their struggles have been. Ask where they have seen challenges. Because I think at the end of the day, that goes back into building relationships with your coworkers. And you are working, when you work, you are actually, that's where you spend majority of your time. And so if you're not enjoying what you're doing, why are you doing it? And so if you're new in staffing, just know that you're not just putting bodies in chairs. You are changing people's lives and giving them the money to be able to put bread on the table. And it's impactful. But it also comes back down to, what are you going to do with it? And how are you going to share the message of what you're doing? Because the word staffing has always had a negative connotation.
Emily, that was fun. I want to thank you so much for coming on this episode of Take the Stage and joining all your insights with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I've loved this conversation.